Yeah. Welcome back to the Military Retirement and Transition Podcast.
And Transition Podcast. That's right.
That's right. We had to add that in there, man. How's
That's
the week
right.
going, John?
It's going great. I actually just want to share something on the screen real quick
Let's do it.
with you and the audience. It's basically, we hit 1,000 subscribers yesterday.
Awesome.
Thank you for everybody who's supported, who's been watching, who's been checking out the channel, watching the videos, sharing the videos, all that stuff. Like, you've really helped us out a lot. And it's the milestone that I've been striving towards for quite some time now. I think you said we're looking at 5K this year. That's what we were predicting.
Yeah. That's my my happy goal right there. That's what very ambitious goal. However, I think if we continue pushing on, continue getting the right guests on here, and reaching out to the communities, I think we can make that happen. But the year is long, so we definitely got some time to focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's great, and it's wonderful to have subscribers and all the stuff. And I don't really get a boost out of that, but what I do get a boost out of is that the bigger the channel is, the easier it is for us to reach out to people like, the VA secretary and people like that to try to get them on the show. So that's really the idea behind it. Like, build it big enough so that we can go grab bigger guests, get more highline guests on here, and ask some really hard questions, some really important people, and try to get some answers for everybody.
Yeah, 100%, man. That's the goal, right? Is try to get answers for all the veterans out there, for all the folks going through the transition. I know I had a lot of questions. I know you had a lot of questions, John. We just gotta get them to the right folks, and by growing this channel, it'll give us a chance to do that. So awesome. Thank you to all the listeners, folks who subscribe, who helped us get to that milestone of 1,000 subscribers. It really is something great for the channel, for us, and for everybody listening, because we'll be able to provide you more information. That's very cool. Very cool. So real quick, John, I wanted to talk about this whole TikTok ban, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know what it was. My Facebook, I guess I got a lot of people on Facebook, on my Facebook friends list, who are on TikTok, but everybody's sharing their screenshots of, oh, it's banned. It's, I no longer have access to my TikTok account, this and that. And this is back when, like, I had started a TikTok, this is maybe like a month, 2 months ago, maybe I had started something, and I was like, I don't really like it. I'm just not going to do it. I posted like 2 videos, and people were just like real crappy on there. So I was like, yeah, whatever, man. I'm just going to let this one go. And I still get updates on it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me is like, good, let it go away. The other part of me is thinking, okay, well, a lot of people made their livelihood from this platform, right? And that's probably the people who are complaining the most. Like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? I'm trying to lead people over to my Instagram, my YouTube, and it's not the same thing, right? I'm not getting the same followers as I was on TikTok.
That's right.
Another portion of it is these social media channels were big outlets for recruiting efforts, right? So this is a way for recruiters to reach out to potential service members, right? They're kind of sharing their daily lives. They're putting the information out there, and that is completely stopped now. So now folks are moving on to this platform called Red Note, right? It's an all Chinese platform. And I have my issues with that, and service members jumping on that as well. So I know we talked a little bit offline, John, about it. And I even pulled up a Reddit that was posted maybe like, oh gosh, it was like 11 hours ago, right? Let me share that on the screen here really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just me Googling something as we were like starting up, before we started up the show. And it was, where is it? No, this is not it. Remove. Here we go. Why are U.S. military members posting videos to Red Note in uniform? And, if I click on one thing, there's, some dude wearing, his uniform, his name tips, everything, my concern with this is folks are giving, potentially, China insight on the military, its life, and, what they're disgruntled about, what they don't like about it. And then it like just fuels a fire for this, and it's concerning. It really is. At least to me, it is. I'd like to hear your thoughts on that, John.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of concern from, of course, China is a very big country. They've been around for 10 or 100 times longer than America has, of course. They've figured a lot of things out. They've basically invented a lot of things that we use today.
Right.
Um, the TikTok thing and the social media thing, I think if you step away from it a little bit and look at how social media and how the internet works in China. And again, I haven't been there, but I know a little bit about what's going on over there. And they've got things like WeChat and they've got all these things and it's all integrated together, right? There's no separation from social media, your phone, your shopping experience, how you bank. Like those things are all interconnected with social media and with these social media apps. And they give you that full experience from front to back, right? So it's not just you go on social media and you scroll and you look at a few things and you're watching some stuff for entertainment purposes. Like they've got shopping and banking and like all that stuff baked into their apps, the way they have their apps set up, right? And it's also in China, of course, on a closed network, so they don't really get access to the outside as much. So if you look at it from that standpoint, the way they build their apps, like TikTok makes sense, and TikTok is a way for them to kind of try to expand their reach out into the rest of the Western world. But then if you take another step back and you think about it, like every single phone, I don't care what brand phone you have, every single phone like is built in China, like in some way, shape, or form. Like there's components, there's the whole phone, there's pieces of the phone, there's software for the phone, hardware for the phone, firmware for the phone. Like that's built in China. There's not too many ways to get around that other than build the stuff here, and people won't do it because it's too expensive. So, you can't really, you can ban the app, I think. And I think depending on the president getting sworn in tomorrow and seeing what his cabinet and what his staff say, and if they're going to decide if they're going to actually cut it off, because President Biden's actually leaving that decision into the hands of President incoming Trump. So they're not going to touch it from the Biden administration. They're just hands off, and they're like, you guys can handle it. You guys can figure it out. So depending what they say, if they decide to put an extension on it and do some deep dive on it and figure out what's going on, maybe it's a political chess move that they can make with the app itself in relations to bigger things that we're dealing with China. Maybe that's a pawn on the board that they can move around. So depending on how all that plays out. But at the end of the day, like I said, the underlying tech, the hardware itself is literally built in China. So if we have any kind of security concerns about Chinese apps, like I think I would be more concerned with the fact that every piece of electronics that I'm using, that you're using, has literally been built in China. Like this microphone, my laptop, the lights, like all of it.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, it really is, man. It's like when I bought a DJI drone, and then you have to turn on your location, right? So that thing is mapping where you're going, right? Like
in some cases with LiDAR.
Yeah, exactly. So like I didn't even want to bring it on base when I worked on base. Like I loved flying the drone. It was cool, right? But I hated that I had to have location services on for that sole reason. So I don't have the drone anymore, right? I returned that thing a while back. But I also noticed, like, so I use CapCut, right, for a lot of my video edits, right? You see the shorts on Military Retirement Podcast, and you see the shorts on Green Logbook. I use CapCut. They are part of ByteDance. So I go in yesterday to update I'm working on a new video. I went around walking, used my little, DJI Osmo. And man, part of ByteDance, part of TikTok, because of the ban, now I cannot use it. I'm like, what the hell? So I got to do these videos, right? So now I'm looking at, I'll wait maybe a day or two, because usually I like to drop a video around Monday, Tuesday. However, I'll wait to see what happens tomorrow, the day after. And if not, maybe I'll jump on I don't know what they got, DaVinci Resolve or, Final Cut Pro or something like that. The thing is, I was so used to CapCut, I didn't want to have to learn something new, but I guess times are changing, and I'm going to have to evolve with it, I suppose.
Maybe, just maybe. I mean, I can open it up on my phone. I haven't looked at my laptop because I don't want to screw things up, but maybe, just maybe, potentially you can use a VPN. And there's another thing that you can throw into the conversation, right? Like with a VPN, for example, if I want to use TikTok and it's banned in the United States, like literally all I got to do is just turn on a VPN and I can use TikTok again, right? So there's ways around that, just as the same way coming the other direction. If I want to watch a show in the States and I'm overseas somewhere, I just use a VPN, turn on my Netflix, located in the country that I want to watch the show in, whether it's in Korea, watching Korean shows or watching shows from the States. And literally like magic, you've got access to that stuff. So yeah, you might still be able to use it with a VPN.
Yeah, I just opened it on my phone too, and it looks like it works on there. But when I do like my heavy editing on the desktop, yeah, it's not. It's
you using the app, or you using the one?
No, I had the app. I got the app. Yeah.
Interesting.
All right. So let's see here.
Crazy times.
It is really crazy times. But I want to get into why we're here today, and that's namely to talk about veterans and to talk about federal jobs. Right. We all know. I mean, you've applied on USAJOBS. I've applied on USAJOBS. Yeah, I think people know our story. I mean, mine was applying about 85 times, had no direction, had no idea why I was getting kicked back all the time. And, lo and behold, it took for me to sit down with somebody who knew the processes in and out to kind of guide me there. And I redid the whole thing, from redoing my resume to looking into like the OPM, and then just kind of matching things that might, like keywords and things like that. So it's almost like a chess game that you got to play, right? You got to know the right moves to get in there. So it took for that, after 85 resumes, to get my foot in the door. And I wondered, why is this so freaking hard? Like I have the education for it, for what they were looking for. I have the experience for it, but I'm not even getting a second look. And some of these are like, there's like 5,000 people that apply for it for these remote jobs. It's so hard to get your foot in the door that it's like, I need to find somebody for the show to demystify this and help fellow veterans to get their foot in the door if that's what they want to do, get into federal service again. So with that, we want to bring on Rudy Muriel. He is, let me see, give me 1 second. Let me pull up I want to do him justice here. Rudy Muriel, here we go. Pulling up his LinkedIn real quick. He is an HR specialist with the outreach and recruitment. So it sounds like he knows what he's doing, and he's got more years doing this than I do. So I'd like to bring to the stage Mr. Rudy. How you doing, Rudy?
Good morning, gents. Thank you for having me on this morning.
Good morning.
Doing good, doing good.
Anybody ever chant Rudy when they bring you on the stage?
I get it all the time. I even got it while I was in the Army. That was the funnest part.
Oh man, I wouldn't be able to stop that. So yeah, Rudy, if you could, man, just tell us, who is Rudy Muriel?
So I'm a native Texan, grew up in Texas, born and raised, started college, and I met a Vietnam veteran while I was in college. Actually, I was working for him. Told me some stories about Vietnam, and the very next semester, I actually dropped out of college and hopped on a plane to Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Wow. So I did 10 years 13 years in the Army. I was 10 years as a forward observer, and then I got picked up for recruiting duty, active duty Army recruiting out of Fort Lewis, which was a turning point for me. I heard all the bad stories about being a military recruiter, but it was a challenge. It was a new challenge for us, for my family and I. And so we took the challenge, went out and recruited in Chicago for 3 years, active duty, ended up being top recruiter of the year. So I came home and I told my wife, I'm like, hey, I got a golden ticket. She's like, golden ticket? What do you mean? I'm like, I don't have to go back to a combat unit. She's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to go recruit in the civilian world. I'm just tired of getting moved every 2 years. We've got three kids who are getting ready to be teenagers. Let's settle down. So we actually flipped the coin, Texas or Washington, and Washington won. So we came out here with no jobs, 3 kids in tow, no house, but we made it work. And so after 14 years, I just heard your story. I spent 14 years applying through USA Jobs with 0 results. And
Wow.
so that's why I've been lucky that the Department of Navy created an outreach position for me, because they saw the strengths in my skills, and they're like, you know what, we need somebody to go out there and actually recruit, because we know that USA Jobs is an obstacle for all the applicants. So lucky for me, I've been doing this now for 10 years in several different Navy commands, but where I started out was at the operations center, where we actually process the USA Jobs applications. So that's why we were able to put this PowerPoint presentation together and put this 2-hour workshop together to help our fellow veterans, transitioning service members, mil spouses apply for these federal positions. Because again, after 14 years, you get, you know, you get to the point in your life as you're transitioning through the military, you're like, what am I going to do? Why doesn't anybody just give me an opportunity? Just give me the chance to get in front of your face so you can see my strengths, and you're going to offer me the job. But when you're competing against, like you said, against 200, 500, 1,000 other applicants, to include veterans who are already current federal employees, how do you beat them out? How does your resume beat them out? So
yeah, that was a big issue too that I was going through, because it does beat you down after a while. You're applying, and then you like non-referred emails, and it's like, what the hell am I doing wrong? You know? So as like service members, like as military service members, maybe somebody wants to take a break, maybe somebody wants to jump into federal service after taking a year off, right? And you know, we're always, as service members, of the mindset like, you give me the job, you give me the mission, you let me step in front of you, and I will show you that I can do the job. That's nice thinking. It's wishful thinking, right? But it's not the way it works. Exactly. You know, so my wife is a federal employee, and this is the conversations I would have with her. Like, oh man, you know, I'm going to get into these interviews and tell them, you know, I'll complete the mission any which way, you know, any form, I'll complete the mission. And she's like, yeah, that's not how it works. You know, they're going to choose the best candidate, but you know, you got to be a little bit more personable than that. Not just, you got to let that military part of you go a little bit and be a little bit more personable. So that's the struggle I had, at least. And after 85, you know, resumes submitted, it was just finally I got a look, and luckily enough, that's the one that actually took me on. So I'd like to ask you, Rudy, what do you think is the biggest hurdle that a lot of veterans are encountering when they're applying? Why can't they get their foot in the door?
So number one, it's usually they're not being able to identify their transferable skills and explain those transferable skills in civilian terminology. So during my workshop, I love to use ONET Online, and actually Army Writer is also another great tool for them to use to help them describe their job duties in civilian terminology versus, you know, military terminology. And that's one of the biggest issues, because at the operation centers where they actually review resumes, and I'm not talking about an AI system searching for keywords and phrases. I'm talking about an individual person reviewing your resume. So they're trying to decipher, what are you trying to explain? And that's one of the biggest hurdles that we have. And again, there's so much misinformation out there as far as, do I use a paragraph resume? Do I use a bulleted style resume? And our job announcements really don't clearly state, what are we going to be looking for in your resume? That's the other obstacle. But number one, again, it's when we're going through TAP, we are being shown how to apply for jobs based on what I've learned in the military as far as my MOS goes. So right away, we've got our blinders on. And one of the things that I talk in my workshop is like, look, let's take off your blinders, because there's all kinds of crazy jobs in the federal government that don't deal with your MOS, but deal with the skills that you've learned in the military. So let's look at it that way.
Do you try to get people going down that same path? Do you try to get people to actually match up their MOS to the civilian code, or do you just kind of throw that out the window and you're just like, look, let's just focus on the skills, let's focus on your strengths, the things that you bring to the table as quantifiable metrics, and go from there? Or do you even try to match those things up?
And it all depends on the MOS. because you got 42 alphas in the Army who are HR specialists who can very easily transfer out here, IT, logistics, supply. But our combat arms people, there's no jobs out here. So I have them focus on their either counseling skills as NCOs and officers, because there's all kinds of crazy counseling opportunities out here, and not just in the federal government. Training, admin 303s, admin specialists in the federal government. And so my part of my class is to have them focus on, if I have a combat MOS that doesn't transfer out into the civilian world, how can I use my administrative skills to apply for those GS7, GS9 positions, so I'm not starting out at a GS4 or GS5 level? So I want to make sure that they get up there, and I'm going to show them how to build their resume based off of that. But we also focus on their I think in the Army, we call them additional duties. In the Navy, they call them collateral duties, which is, SHARP, EEO, safety, range control. All those jobs also exist in the federal government, and they have no idea that they do. So as they're transitioning out of the military, they're focused on, what am I doing right now? And how can I get a job doing this versus, hey, let's take off our blinders and look at all the other things that I've learned in the military and all the other skills that I've gained in the military and use them out here in the civilian world.
Yeah, and even in a lot of cases, those ASIs or those additional skills that they've gained through additional duties, a lot of cases, those are things that they actually wanted to do beyond their regular job, which is more of an incentive to transfer that over. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So Rudy, I wanted to ask about the equivalency, right? So I know that we were talking back and forth on LinkedIn, and we both jumped on a post that that somebody put up here. I think it was a Tim Yarbrough, Director of Human Capital. I'll put it up on the screen here really quick. And this is something I looked at a while back. So it says Department of Defense Working Capital Fund Civilian/Military Equivalency Rate. Right. So what it does is, what we're looking at here is, there's a military rate, like, say like a major, lieutenant colonel, and it gives you the equivalency on the GS side. Right. As I'm looking at it, I'm looking at, say, E9, say a sergeant major who has tons of responsibilities for the commands, is equivalent to a GS8 who may not have a ton of responsibilities. What are your thoughts on this thing, on this this chart here?
I don't know where that chart came from. I'm gonna have to actually go back and look at it. But that's way out and left. That's not even in the ballpark, because again, it's all about the position and the skills that you've gained. So there is actually no equivalency that you can look at, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to equal the pay, which has nothing to do with from military to federal government. There's no such animal. You can't equal that, because you don't know what my job is out here in the civilian world. And what you're doing in the military is something totally different. So I think that scale or that chart is just a little bit out of the ballpark, because like I said, I've had attendees of my workshop, and again, here's a staff sergeant, E6, who's working as a gate guard, making $36,000 a year. And he's like, hey, Rudy, I heard that there's going to be a GS13, 14, 15 career ladder equipment specialist that's going to be posted. I used to be an equipment specialist in the Navy. I want to apply for this job. I'm like, come to the class. That's all I can tell you. Just come to the workshop. Sure enough, next thing I know, he got the job as a GS13, and he was, 10-year Navy veteran as a staff sergeant E6. I also had an 05 out of JBLM. He's like, Rudy, I don't want to do any of this stuff. I want to learn how to be a welder. Sir, that's a blue collar worker. That's a wage grade 3 that you're going to start on. He's like, I don't care. I just want to learn how to be a welder. Sure enough, 10 years later, now he's the wage grade director for the electrician program at the shipyard. But again, he started at the lowest level and he worked his way up. So again, wage grade director, I think they're making almost the same thing as a GS 13, 14. So again, it's all about the job. And what is it that you want to do? And how can I teach you to draw up your resume based on your transferable skills to apply for that job?
Right. And this chart was I've seen it before many years ago, and it kind of it I understand maybe like financially it would make more sense, right? Like maybe like an E6 might be equivalent, before BH and all that stuff to maybe a
Right.
GS5. Times change, of course. Um, but for instance, my last position as DoD contractor, there was a GS there who was a prior, just a couple years before, he was an E4, and he got all his certs. He learned about IT, and he was working as a GS13. He just got hired as a GS13 there. I'm like, dude, you were a corporal before, an E4, and then now you're a GS13. This chart is way off, and I can tell you it's antiquated because it says December 2008, right? But for the sake of this thing was just posted on my own LinkedIn, and a lot of people were commenting on it and looking at it. I thought I'd bring it up, but no, great insight on that because
Thank you.
it's not about like the skills. It's not even about the knowledge, right? I mean, it's more like a financial thing, maybe equivalency,
Exactly.
but definitely not about the skills and knowledge.
Exactly. And I think that's what he did message me back later on. And we, we talked about, yes, you're trying to match pay, but that's not how it works. It's all
Yeah.
based on your skills and knowledge that you're bringing to the table. And again, I really don't care what your rank is. And I think I had some hiring officials on the messaging too, who said the same thing. I don't care what your rank was in the military. I want to know what you're going to do for me. And can you get the job done? That's the
Exactly.
bottom line.
Yeah, that's and maybe that's just a kind of a bad like overshadowing of how we look at things. And that's one of the things, like me personally, I chose to go down the NAF route, right? So that NAF is a whole nother ball game. I mean, they do post NAF jobs on USAJOBS, of course, but it's more of a blue collar kind of thing as well, right? And they have different pay grades depending on the NAF positions, and they don't really go as high as GS, I don't think. Not that I've seen anyway, but generally speaking, they're probably about halfway down from GS pay grades. But the thing about it is like what you said. Why do we have to map an 06 to a GS13 or GS14? Like, is that just us and our kind of mentality and the culture that we've been brought up in to say, okay, well, I've worked as a E8 for so long and now I should be paid equivalent of what I was making as an E8. Like, okay, that's great, but do you really want the job, or are you just asking for the job because of the money? Like, if that's
Right.
the case, then you could just go and filter by dollar amounts and figure out which jobs have the dollar amount and then apply for those, right?
Yeah. And I think that's one of the biggest obstacles when I was an employment counselor before I became a federal employee, because I met with a lot of the transition service members, and I'm like, Rudy, I need to make this much money. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Like, look, every single job that I've taken, I held a job, and I didn't quit that job till after I already had a job offer. But every new job offer that I received, to include coming into federal service, I actually took a cut in pay. And I took a cut in pay because I knew that within a year to 2 years, I was already going to be making more than what I was making at my other job. But again, patience, budgeting, what do you have, that you need to take care of right now before you make those decisions. But again, I took a cut in pay every single job that I've had in the last, 25 years since I leave the military to take a new one. But again, you need to look at those things when you're going to make those decisions. Don't just say, hey, I'm going to quit my job, or hey, that job's better because it pays better. And guess what? You get there and it's like the worst job ever.
Yeah, that's the hard part, right? You don't know what you're going to be walking into.
Exactly.
So, yeah, and and that's why it's good to network too, right? Like, hey, look, that's at least if you recall, like in the military, if you were going to get PCS orders, at least I did this when I received PCS orders, or I was looking at where I wanted to go next, because as you get higher in rank, maybe you get a little bit of say of where you want to go. I'd always call ahead, like, hey, look, what's the morale there? Like, what's the workload like there? How's it like working for this person? It's kind of hard to do that maybe in the GS world, because stepping out of the military, you don't have that network. You don't know these people, right? But as you get your foot in there and you start to know these things, maybe you can call ahead, like, hey, look, looking to take this job on. Who's over there? How are they working? Are they is it tough to work with them? Is it not? Et cetera. So it definitely, you want to expand your network on that.
Yeah, and I'm lucky. I get to work in the environment. So when I first left the military, and I heard you mention it before, trying to get rid of that military frame of mind. It's really
Right.
after 10 years or more, it's hard to leave it. And it was when I went to the corporate world, I was recruiting for a big medical company. I don't know if I can say their name, but it used to be Group Health. Now it's Kaiser. We were sitting in a meeting, and one of my coworkers said, "Rudy, don't you ever talk to me like that." And I talk like I normally talk. I had no idea that I was still portraying my NCO authority on the civilian side of the house. And I think that's one of the hardest things for us to do is there is no switch to say, "Hey, I'm a civilian now, and here I got to go back to being a military, NCO or officer." But when I first transitioned out of the military, the reason I kept that was because the jobs that I was in as a case manager for homeless men and working with at-risk youth, it still required that kind of authority. And so I failed to trickle that out of my life because now when I made it to the corporate world, I still had it there, and it was bad for my teammates. I'm just going to tell you that, because now they felt that I was being authoritative over them, which I wasn't. I was just trying to be a team player, but none of them were ever in the military. So it was hard for them to try to figure out my attitude too.
Were you able to, how were you able to finally get that under wraps and get that controlled? Because I know there's a lot of coaching out there for transitioning service members. There's a lot of mentorship programs out there trying to get you prepared for the civilian world. It seems like most of it, at least in my experience and what I've heard from others, is getting the resume set up, getting your headshots done for LinkedIn and whatever, getting different things in place, but there's not any real coaching or mentoring when it comes to actually interacting in the civilian world. Is there something that you experienced or you picked up along the way that you can say, yeah, this is kind of the things that allowed me to then translate my military jargon, my speech, and my demeanor into civilian lifestyle?
So TAP is just one small piece to the puzzle. Because you have a lot of TAP personnel who actually haven't been in the civilian world and know what it's like to apply for jobs via email, online, or actually doing interviews. So TAP just gives you that, hey, get ready, buckle in, because it's going to be a rough ride for some of you. And so one of the things that they don't mention, and my TAP, I spent 1 week at Fort Knox because I was recruiting out in Chicago. So my out processing took place at Fort Knox, and it was 1 week of just signing paperwork. See you later. I'm out. But now that I'm part, now that most of the TAP classes around the U.S. allow me to present this workshop, I can actually see where there's a lot of missing gaps in the transitioning process. One of them is, one of the biggest ones is they failed to tell our transitioning service members that when they get to the state that they're going to be going to, they need to go directly to the employment office. At each individual employment office, there's a local veterans employment representative, and that local veterans employment representative works directly with all the employers in that location. So they know who's looking for veterans. The other person is the Disabled Veterans Outreach Program Counselor, who works directly with the veterans and mil spouses. General, honorable, dishonorable discharges, they will work with them, and they will counsel them and guide them to help them write a better resume so they can apply for some of the positions that are available in that community. So that's one of the biggest gaps that I've seen. And I've been doing this workshop now for almost 7 years, almost 8 years. That's one of the biggest gaps that I continue to see is we're failing to tell our service members and our male spouses that once they land wherever they're going to land, they need to go directly to that employment office and speak to those two individuals, because they're going to show them how to they're going to enroll them in the job hunter workshops that they have. And that's resume writing, transitioning your transferable skills, what's called the skills and abilities workshop, interviewing, online applications. There's about 6 workshops that they can take. And it's really going to soften the landing for them in that community. And so now they're going to be able to focus on that community. Hey, where are the jobs? What kind of jobs are available? Who's looking for veterans? It's going to be an easier transition for them versus, but again, I think Victor had brought it up too, is that one of the hardest things for us to do, and I'm talking about a transitioning service member, is when do I put my pride off to the side? And when do I know that somebody's offering me a hand up, not a handout? And that's one of the hardest things for us to decipher, is like, because, hey, I can do it on my own. No, we can't. We didn't do it on our own while we were in the military.
No.
Always had somebody.
Much as we think we did.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's my biggest obstacle for them right now.
And that's the tough thing to get over too. So for instance, I received some referrals right back in the day, when I first started applying. This is once I passed the waiver amount, the 6-month waiver for DOD. And some of them were like, GS6, GS7s. And I'm like, maybe I want to go a little bit higher than that. I mean, do you encounter a lot of veterans who are like, I'm better than that? Do you encounter that?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's not that I'm better than that. It's that I think based on my workshop, I think I tell them that they're better than that. And so I just had a young man. He just got out. He just retired, 20 years, Army. He was actually an Army recruiter in this location. He's like, Rudy, I'm coming back to Washington. And he was actually at Fort Knox out processing. So I'm like, dude, sit in through my class. While he was sitting in through my class, he actually received a job offer through Commander Navy Region Northwest for a GS7 position. So after he took my workshop, he saw a GS11 management analyst position. He actually applied for that through NAVFAC, and he just onboarded a couple of weeks ago with us. So even though he had the offer for the GS7, he still continued to apply through USAJOBS and got the GS11. And that's why I was telling him, like, look, man, you have all this experience in recruiting, program management. I get it. You just want to get your foot in the door, but let's shoot for something higher, because your resume, the way you've written it, will definitely qualify you for something higher. So a lot of the times it's when a lot of our transitioning service members apply through USAJOBS, they are so humble when they're answering the assessment questionnaires that they failed to make the 90% on that assessment questionnaire, and their resume never makes it to the second gatekeeper, who is the HR specialist. And again, that's another obstacle that we face, because we don't want to overshadow our great skills that we're going to choose the minimum 4 on there. So.
And I want to ask you, Rudy, what is your take on the education piece? And specifically, there's been times where I've been looking around USAJOBS, and I know many others have seen it out there. I even saw a link. I wish I saved the link on LinkedIn, because I know there was some talk about that. For like GS11s, they're looking for somebody with a master's degree. And if you want to go to GS12, it's on there on the education piece. PhD for GS12. And I'm wondering, like, yeah, I'm nowhere near a PhD. I'm not going to even apply for that. It's almost like I got, it was like hands off for me. Like, I don't even want to try for that. Like, what's your take on that education stuff that they're asking about?
So look, on the education portion, we like to use that for people who are recent grads. So if you look at a lot of the job, that's why they only top out at the GS11. If you look at some of the other positions that are a combination of work experience and education at the GS12, GS13, I mean, education doesn't matter past the GS12 unless it's a requirement, like engineers, counselors, mental health,
Contracting.
doctors, things like that. Other than that, the regular GS world, so it's like the VRA direct hire. So VRA direct hire allows a hiring official to hire somebody without competition between a GS1 and a GS11. The education piece is kind of the same way, where we're going to allow you to apply for the position based on your education alone, no work experience, because you're going to have to learn the work experience as you're being hired, and that's why it tops out at the GS11 when it comes to the education piece.
Right. I saw
So yeah, so that's why you're going to need the training. So when I started out at the operations center, I started out at the GS7, and I went through 6 months hands-on training. This is what HR specialist does in the federal government. This is the systems you're going to use. These are the policies, procedures. This is how you advise. And again, I already had a piece to it, which was reviewing resumes and advising hiring managers, things like that. I had a little piece to it, but you're still going through. It's amazing hands-on training. Is all I'm going to say, because I learned a lot in those 6 months, which allowed me 6 months later to transfer out of that position into another HR position, which was a Wounded Warrior Advisor for all of the 5 Navy commands in this region. So, lots to learn, but you're going to get that hands-on learning experience from all your teammates too. So you're surrounded by all these other GS-12s, GS-13s, 9s, and 11s who are going to help you along the way.
We got time to bring up a question from the audience or two.
Let's do it. Yeah. What do we got?
Let me shift the screen a little bit, and then I'll bring David's comment up here so we can all see it.
Good old Dave Owens.
One of the challenges I believe new retirees face in the federal hiring is that some hiring managers don't want to have to go through the waiver process to hire. Here in Hawaii, it's withheld to the 4-star. I confirmed that through the CPAC. I'm on my 24th application, select for 1 GS6, but I declined and currently have 2 referrals for GS11 positions. I guess more of a comment than a question, but pretty crazy.
So I do want to. Yeah, I wanted to make. Let's see. Where did he say new retirees believe you have to go through? So David, I'm going to say this because the Department of the Army is the only one that likes to sit on the waivers. I'm sorry. I'm going to say that because I worked directly with Army Installation Command out of Bragg, out of Benning, here at JBLM, and that's their biggest complaints. I don't know what it is with the Army doing this kind of stuff, but all the other federal agencies, Department of the Navy, we already have a waiver in process. If you apply and I want to hire you, you're not going to wait the 180 days. You're not going to wait the 4 months because the waiver is already on its way. And that's what some of the other I just don't know what it is with the Army playing this game on the waiver process. And my apologies, but I hear that from a lot of people, and the hiring officials, not just the applicants.
Right. And let's bring the other one up here.
Austin. All right.
Yeah. You might have to read this one.
Okay. Yeah, let me do that.
Yeah.
I got it. What's up, fellas? Grateful for all that you do for the transitioning and veterans community. My question is with about 7 to 8 months left. I really don't know what I want to do, much less which direction, GS or civilian job sector. How did you guys go about making that decision of which sector you wanted to go to? Greetings again from Portugal. Living the life out in Portugal.
Yep.
Nice.
So I suppose I'll let you gentlemen take the lead on this one. Like, how did you decide what sector you want to go into?
So I had worked I wanted to go into the federal sector right off the bat because my mom was already working at Homeland Security. So look, this is a young. My mom worked for federal government for 22 years, and she had no idea about direct hire. And so here I am applying to USAJOBS, not knowing a clue about direct hire, especially when it comes to combat veterans status. But I always wanted to get into federal government. Lucky for me, I guess I went and gained some good experience out in the civilian world that really taught me a lot about who I am as an individual. So I got lucky that I got to do that first, and then and then finally got called in for that direct hire opportunity that I took with the federal government. So now I've been here for 10 years, and again, I get to work directly next to the warfighter, which has been my passion. You know, as an Army veteran, I still get to work next to the warfighter side by side, and I know that the work that I'm doing is still protecting the freedom of this country.
Yeah, and directly affecting those around you. And you can see that feedback immediately. Yeah, that's actually really awesome. And actually, if we get to it before the end of the show, I want to kind of ask you, how do I worm my way into the TAP process to become like a speaker on the panel or something like that? But my personal experience, I think it would have been different if I was staying stateside. I would have maybe looked more into the GS realm and dug deeper on that. On the federal side of employment, for me anyway, it was more about being able to stabilize in one location for as long as possible. And with the GS overseas, you can't necessarily do that. You get 5, maybe 6 years, and there's a cap. And then you have to go back to the States, depending on how that all works out, depending on waivers from the command, et cetera, et cetera. For me, the blue collar NAF just kind of checked all the boxes for me. It still gets 401k. You know, I get a decent wage coupled with my retirement pay, coupled with my VA benefits pay. I get to stay stationary as long as I want. So I can basically stay in this job for as long as I want and not have to worry about somebody saying, oh yeah, we have to send you back to the States because you have to be back in the States for 2 years or whatever, and then come back overseas. That was really kind of the deciding factor for me. I would have also entertained civilian contracting because I have done that before in Europe, and that's also a very lucrative thing, but it starts to go down that path of, hey, I'm chasing the money rather than, hey, I'm chasing these other tangible things like stabilization, being able to come home at 5 o'clock, like those kind of things. So.
Yeah, I completely see that, man, because the contracting piece was awesome, and that's I didn't want to, me personally, I didn't really see myself getting into a federal job. There was a lot of talk of it as I was doing my whole transition process, right? Like, oh, you know, you could easily smooth yourself or make your way into a federal position, being that you know this. But I thought, you know, I really wanted to be like an art museum director, like the San Diego Museum of Art. That's what I really wanted to do, right? And because I love all that art world, right? However, you know, I don't have an art degree or anything like that. That'd be something I have to go to school for. So that's like the long-term end. But then I figured, you know, what else do I like to do? And I kind of laid everything down, right? You know, John and I, we like to write things down. We journal a lot. So I kind of analyzed myself. Okay, I like to solve problems. I like to solve issues. I like to figure out how things work, why they work, and potentially put in a new system or process in place to make it work more streamlined. And this new position that I got into was exactly that. So when I was a DoD contractor, it was more like, John, like you mentioned, it was more of chasing the money. And I'm like, okay, well, that the money was good as a DoD contractor. However, there was a hole left to fill for me. It was like, you don't really feel like you're part of the team. That was big for me, right? Like coming from the Marine Corps, coming from like a camaraderie and tribe mindset, like you are part of the team. I was seeking that again to fill that void. And I couldn't find that as a DoD contractor because you're not. You're like, you're just there for the money. When I was brought on as a GS at this new position I'm at, it was completely different. The second I got on, like the first week I got on, they put me on leadership courses, and if you look at my calendar, it looks like you threw a pack of Skittles at the wall, right? It's like colorful with all these leadership courses and meetings and stuff. Like it's cool because it gets you into a rhythm, right? You know, like a battle rhythm, what I used to have, and it's about solving issues. It's about solving problems. So though I didn't think I was going to get into a federal position or wanted to seek that before, I'm having fun with this now. Like it was a bit of a pay cut, like you mentioned, Rudy. It is a bit of a pay cut going from contractor to GS, right? Because then I'm looking at my pay. I'm like, what the hell is this? You know, they're taking out this. You know what I'm talking about? They're taking out so much, right? And I'm like, what the hell is this?
Yes.
because you work in there for, it'll go up every year. You can see the pay scale, right? It's free for anybody to see online. You know that it's going to go up. On top of that, it's going to go up, every year with an increase to COLA or whatever it is. But the main thing was this new position of solving issues, solving problems, something that I did while I was in uniform was fun for me. And I'm having fun with it now because I have a team. I have a team who cares about their job, right? And I didn't think I was going to be able to find that after. It was like trying to search for that. But I'd say to Mr. Austin, who put the comment up, you really got to analyze what you want to do and where you see yourself in a few years. Like I wanted to be, like I mentioned, art director or whatever. Maybe I will do that in the future, but that requires education. You got to look at what kind of education you have, what you really like to do, and maybe pursue that. Kind of like a passion thing, right? So it really worked out well for me. I'm assuming it'll work out well for you because you have some time, 7 to 8 months, really. Take some time off from military life, analyze your situation, where you want to be. Do you want to stay in Portugal? What opportunities are there in Portugal? So I know Rudy, are there positions like GS positions in Portugal? Is that like a spot where they hire?
I think so. Yeah, they're all over the world. So all you have to do is type in the name of the country in the location of USA Jobs, and it'll show you. Just leave the job title blank and just type in the country, and it'll show you all the jobs that are open to U.S. citizens in those localities.
Awesome. Yeah. So there's a potential that he could potentially get a job over in Portugal. I don't know if you could be in Portugal and get the job there. You might have to come back to the States. I don't know how that works.
Maybe,
but there's a potential.
I'm waiting for them to start posting the Australia openings up. So.
Right.
Let me see. We got another one here from Navy Cop MA1. How big of a factor is age? Retired 15 years ago and in the job search process again after a job loss, and now a year later, a job loss due to city budget crisis. But 56 now. Is ageism an issue?
I'm going to tell you right now, not in the federal government. And the reason being is we hire a lot of retirees. They're called reemployed annuitants. So to us, we view you as you bringing a wealth of knowledge to the job. So don't ever feel that there isn't that ageism in the federal government. Like I said, just because we hire a lot of retirees, and a lot of retirees like to come back and work after they retire from the federal government.
Yeah.
So yeah, apply, and if you need help, please feel free to reach out.
It is hard, isn't it? Like if I see these posts on Facebook about, I'm finally retired, I'm living on this farm. But it is hard to do like that hard stop, like the go, hard stop. And it's like, what happens now? What do I do with my hands? It's that thing. So I guess going into like a federal position, kind of like doing maybe 10 more years there and then evaluating, because we're all still young, when you retire. If you do your 20 years, you're just about your 40s, right? Give or take. You still got a whole life ahead of you, a whole second chapter, as we call it. So it really is tough to do like a hard stop and not do anything. I've tried sitting on the beach for a week. I get bored. I don't want to do that anymore. I want to find a purpose, right?
Yeah. And I think you just nailed it, Vic, right there. It's what's my next purpose in life after the military? And because again, we retire at so early. I didn't retire, but I just finished paying back my military 13 years military time. So they added those 13 years of military service into my federal government side. Actually, it's 15 years because I did 2 more years National Guard active duty recruiting. And so my boss just notified me. He's like, "Hey, dude, you're eligible to retire full blown in November." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You got 25 years of service." I'm like, "What? No way." I'm like, I'm 59. I'm not ready to retire. I'm still having fun right now at my job. Getting to meet a lot of people. And I think your guest said it best last week when she said, I'm not looking to do my own podcast. I'm looking to look at everybody else's and gain those clients because again, you guys have the audiences that are willing to listen and learn from the guests that you have.
Thanks, man. That's really kind of you to say that. Yeah. It's it's a labor of love. It's our passion. If we didn't have to work, I think for myself personally, I'll speak for myself. If I didn't have to work and I didn't have to go to a job and I knew I could just do this full time, like I think I would literally, I think it's the same thing you experience when you go to these TAP seminars, when you go in front of military members and talk to them about transitioning, about the federal job hiring process and all that stuff. Like I think you get that kind of feedback that then makes you feel really good inside, and it makes you want to do more of that. I think I would do this permanently if I could do it permanently.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. Yeah.
Yeah, if I could find if I could find somebody to host me, like to do this 2-hour workshop, and the USO does. Thank you, John. And I would be more than happy to. The USO hosts me once a quarter, and we do a worldwide presentation to all transition service members. They actually have watch parties at individual bases across the world, which is amazing, because we get an audience of anywhere from 300 to 500 transition service members and mil spouses, which is great, because the more information that we get out there about this process, not just the better for them, but the better for my hiring officials on my side of the house, that they're going to get a better selection of applicants. It's not the same ones over and over and over and over again. Right.
So Rudy, I wanted to ask, just switching gears a little bit, because this is something that I researched when I got a job offer, and I could not find much information on it. I mean, unless I created a post on a Facebook group or something, but regarding like negotiations for like salaries and things like that. So I came to the GS world without any prior federal experience, right? I had education, I had experience, but how would one that hasn't been in the federal service before, or maybe has like maybe 5 years of experience or something, how can they effectively negotiate a salary, maybe like a higher step, or what even can be negotiated when you're looking at getting into federal work?
Right. So one of the things that I've been teaching in the workshop is for non-federal employees to make sure that they get in the habit of putting in their dollar amount on their resume. This is how much I make an hour, because this is going to help you negotiate. Once you become a federal employee, you're no longer eligible to negotiate a step increase or a salary or anything like that. You're held to time and grade and time and service and all that fun stuff. So what I asked them to do, and this is very hard on our side of the house, because it takes a lot of time. Hopefully that's not me. Is it my computer lagging a little bit?
No, you're good.
So you only get one shot at this, and you only get to negotiate when you are applying for a single graded position. That means a GS7 or a GS11 or a GS12, GS13. You a lot of the times you cannot negotiate a step increase when you are applying for a career ladder position. And a career ladder position is a GS7, 9, 11, or 11, 12, 13, whatever. You can't negotiate a step increase on those, because you're going to get an automatic promotion every year to a grade level, not a step increase. Now, if I apply for a GS11 and I get the job offer at the GS11, but I applied maybe based on 10 years of experience, or maybe I applied based on a combination of experience and education. When you receive the tentative job offer via email, you want to email that HR specialist back right away and ask them, can I be considered for superior qualifications based on my 10 years of experience, or based on my 5 years of experience and my master's in education? So what we're going to do, and I'm talking about me, the HR specialist, I'm going to take your packet and I'm going to go have a conversation with the hiring official. Hey, John, Rudy just asked for a step increase, or he was asking for superior qualifications. Does he meet the superior qualifications? Yes, he does. What do you want to offer? Well, let's offer him a GS11, step 2, step 3, maybe step 4. And let's see if he takes that. So now you just negotiated your salary. You negotiated step increase. Does it work? Yes. I just helped Armando Mejia, who used to work for Boeing. He actually transitioned out of the military as a wounded warrior here at JBLM. He did an internship as a GS5. left the military, left the temporary federal government, went to go work for the Seahawks, and him and I coordinated a direct hire event at Seahawks Stadium. But then he went to go work for Boeing. Lo and behold, a couple of months ago, he's like, Rudy, I got my master's in sociology. I'm ready to go back and counsel transitioning service members, wounded warriors. I want to get back into that service. So he applied for the GS-12. Boom, he got the GS-12, and he's like, I need a little bit more money. I'm like, well, what do you want to shoot for? He's like, I want to shoot for a GS-7. I'm like, let's shoot for the GS-5. So he shot for the GS-5. They came back and said, send us your pay vouchers from Boeing. And he's like, okay, if I'm going to do that one, I want a GS-7. So step 7. And sure enough, they gave him the step 7. But I think if Dave is still on here with the Army, it almost took him 210 days to onboard just because he was negotiating. So it took a long time, but he got what he wanted. And so now he's a wounded warrior counselor here at Madigan, Madigan Army Hospital, JBLM. But you can negotiate your salaries. Just remember, single grade, ask for superior qualifications.
Wow, 210 days. So what happens behind the scenes with that? What is that? What does it entail?
It's just going back and forth from. So in my PowerPoint, I actually have a PowerPoint that shows the operation centers versus the commands. So up at the operation centers, you have maybe 4 or 5 different teams who support different commands down at the lower level. So the HR team down here is conversing with the HR team at the operation center, and we're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And it just takes so long. So that's why we came up with direct hire opportunities. Yeah. The direct hire opportunities takes out the operations center out of the loop until we make you the job offer. So all the job posting, resume reviews, and all that other fun stuff, boom, it's out of operations center's hands, and it's just down here at my level. So I'm able to make you the job offers a whole lot quicker, move the paperwork a whole lot quicker, versus the operations centers getting their hands on it every single time. Yeah. That's what takes the longest. And a lot of people don't understand that there's a big disconnect between the operations center's HR and the command level HR down here at this level. We don't talk to each other unless we have to.
So we got a question from Dave again. I'll pull it back up on the screen about the contributions for buyback for your military time and converting that over to your civilian retirement. If you want to just address that real quick.
Yeah. So you're not really. So we're already giving you credit for your time in service. What you're actually just buying back is what the military paid into your retirement system. So I spent 13 years in the Army. I paid back DFAS $6,200, and I just did an allotment of $50 every pay period. And so once I finished paying off those $6,200, DFAS, all the my retirement money got put into my federal retirement fund. So that's what I'm buying back. So if you served 0 to 3 years in the military, we're going to give you already credit for time in service, which means you're going to get 4 hours of sick leave, 4 hours of regular leave every pay period. 4 to 7 years, you're going to get 4 hours of sick leave, 6 hours of regular leave, and then 8 years and above, you're going to get 4 hours of sick leave and 8 hours of regular leave every pay period. So again, we're already giving you credit for that. It's just, so retirees, don't buy back your military time, because if you buy back your military time, you're going to have to give up your pension, and you don't want to give up your pension. Now, I have seen some veterans buy back their retirement, and it was because they got a GS-13 job right off the bat, and they could afford to give up their retirement, their pension, and they're starting from scratch with a whole new, federal retirement system. But I, as an HR specialist, we always advise, don't buy. If you're a retiree, keep it over there. Start from scratch over here with the federal government. You only have to work 5 years to be fully vested, and then you can retire again if you want to retire again.
Yeah. And then one more from Sarah P. How hard is it to get a job with the CDC as an epidemiologist, qualify for disabled vets preference, and going through VRNE Chapter 31? Congrats to you for the VRNE Chapter 31. It's a great program.
Nice. Sarah, those, they're not really hard. You just need to make sure, and if you can set in through one of my workshops, I can show you what the actual qualifications are. Now, in my workshops, I'm going to show you 3 hidden Easter eggs in our job announcements, especially, and you want to look at job announcements that are open for 3 to 15 days, because those are what we call our competitive job announcements. Those job announcements actually contain an assessment questionnaire that's derived directly from the position description that's going to help you build and target your resume specifically for that job announcement. Now, the problem with USA Jobs is when people go on there and search, number one, we have a lot of generic job titles in the federal government. So it's really hard for you to try to decipher and come up with one specific job title. Number two, the system is going to sort them out by relevance. So that means all the job announcements that are open for 6 months to a year are going to float to the top, and you're going to continue to see those jobs over and over and over again. You're going to be like, aren't they going to ever change this? Aren't they going to add new jobs? You actually have to go in there and sort them out by open date in descending order, and you're going to be able to see all the new jobs that get posted Monday through Friday, midnight Eastern Standard Time. You're going to be able to keep abreast of the new jobs that are being posted, and leave the job title blank so that way you can take a look at all the jobs that are being posted. Because again, those generic job titles, program manager, management analyst, it could be dealing with workforce, budget, finance, HR. You have no idea, because it's a generic job title, and you didn't know that you qualified for that job because you're like, oh, it's a program manager. I probably don't even qualify that. Open up the job announcement and look at the duties and responsibilities, and you'll be able to see, hey, yeah, this is my kind of job.
Yeah, and not only that, I'll say this as far as the Chapter 31 thing is concerned, there should be at the end of your Chapter 31 program, there should be an allotted amount of time for them to work direct. I mean, you get a counselor throughout the whole Chapter 31 program. At the end, they focus specifically on job hunting, finding a job, doing the resume writing, interview, like all that stuff. They help you along the way with that. And I'm pretty sure if you have that job in mind and it's at the end of your Chapter 31 program, that you should be able to at least get pretty close to that direction. I mean, you've probably already discussed it with your counselor as well for the VRNE program. So definitely see what they can do on the back end of the Chapter 31. Also, they give you additional benefits as far as pay for the Chapter 31 program for a few months after you've finished whatever you've determined as your program. So I would definitely check back with them and find out what they can do after the fact once you've done all the training or whatever you've got written down in your program.
And Rudy, I wanted to ask you a quick question. That you brought up the retirement. You can be eligible for retirement after 5 years. You mentioned, what does that look like? Like if let's say I'm 41, I retire at 46. Let's say I stop working for federal government. That doesn't mean I can start collecting like a military retirement at 46.
Correct.
Does that mean I have to wait until 60? Was it 63? And
So
what would I be looking at for?
So early
amount?
early retirement has now changed to 62. Regular
62.
retirement is 65, and later retirement is 67. So, yeah, you're not going to get any of that till you actually retire. Now you can roll over your TSP, and same thing with your TSP. You can either go ahead and bank it out or roll it over into an IRS or some other kind of fund too. But you're not going to be. I mean, if you want to take it out, you know that they're going to hammer you on the taxes.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then what is off the top of your head? Do you know the amount of like a percentage of what you're bringing in? How does that work?
So it's almost. I'm trying to. I don't think the military does it, but it's almost like some of the other regular civilians where the last 3 years that you served, they're going to take those last 3 years of highest pay, and then they're going to do their math, and that's what you're going to end up with.
So the high 3. Okay. So kind of like what the military is transitioning from. They're doing the BRS now.
Yes.
But the high 3. Okay. Got it. Okay. That's good. That's good. Yeah. Because there's a lot of information I encountered when I was looking at federal positions, and like, oh yeah, you can also retire from this place, and you can retire after 5 years, but it kind of gives the illusion that it's similar to a military retirement. Oh, I only have to do 5 years and I get 50% of my pay. No, that's not how it works, man. It's federal government. You got to wait later on in life, right? So yeah,
Unless
no,
you're the president
yeah. Oh, okay. Well,
or a member of Congress.
okay. Well, that's different.
Yeah, you got it.
Maybe you should be a congressman.
Maybe I should. Rudy, how hard is it to switch to other specialties? Let's say somebody is a maybe like an engineer. I don't know. There's usually a number tied to that, and then they want to switch to maybe their passion lies in, I don't know, social work, and then they want to be a social worker. How hard is it to go from one specialty to another once you're in the system?
Yeah, it again, it all depends. So some of them, like if just the example that you used, unless they have the degree, you're not going to get it. Same thing. It's the same thing with HR. We have a lot of people who start out as 0303 admin specialists that want to transfer over into HR 0201s, and you can't. It's almost like the military. You actually have to have that work experience or education before you can switch over to another MOS or
Right.
Work
Job specialty.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah. So
there are some like the program managers where you're going to be able to do that because maybe as a program manager 0346 job title program manager, you were doing HR work and it'll allow you to cross over. Same thing with the management analyst. But again, some of them are very difficult because some of them like the engineers, all of them require degrees.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, that's very good to know.
Can I ask my selfish question now? Is this the time?
Oh, go ahead, man. Do your thing. What do you got?
Yeah. As far as the TAP process is concerned and getting on that roster, I've tried it locally. Victor's tried it locally where he's at as well. I'm about to re-engage and reload on the TAP process and see if I can re-engage with them. But generally speaking, because I've been doing a lot more research and digging a lot more into it, and it seems like they've got these set things that they're built into the program, and a lot of them happen to be either profit or not-for-profit organizations that are then vetted to be a part of the umbrella of the TAP. How do I, as an outsider, jump into that sphere? Do I need to create a nonprofit and then like structure it around that and then put it in front of the TAP board and have them process it and vet it?
Let me put you in contact with Shane Watson and Bill. I forget his last name. That work here out of JBLM that do that. So again, I got lucky. I had I think it's helmets to hard hats or something like that, or boots to what is it? Boots to shoes.
Boot to business.
Boost to business. It was one of those contractors, as a matter of fact, that invited me to come to JBLM and do a presentation for them. And so I got lucky. I got to meet the director and Shane, who handles the TAP classes there and organizes everything. And so, boom! All of a sudden, they put me under their umbrella. Now, here's the funny weird thing, is that the Army and the Air Force allow me to come do the presentation, the 2-hour presentation for TAP. The Department of Navy gives me a 30-minute lunch session for their TAP class because, like you said, I'm an outsider. I'm not under their umbrella. I'm not a contractor. I'm an actual recruiter. So they don't allow me to come do the full meal deal here for them. Number two, Department of Navy already believes that the sailors are trained to go get a job in the civilian world. They don't need TAP.
Nice.
To process out of the military. I'm like, where are you guys even coming? I mean, I've had discussions with some of the CEO at the shipyard. I'm like, where are you guys even coming up with this? I mean, why are you thinking like that? But that's their way of thinking. And so again, each agency is different. I can also put you in contact with Devon Atbury at I think he's at Fort Meade. He's on the East Coast. TAP. He also invited me if I wanted to come present for them too, virtually. So I'll put you in contact with all those people too, and maybe let's see if we can finagle something with them. They're really cool. Like I said, they let me in under their umbrella, and I'm not a contractor. I'm just a recruiter, and So again, it's that networking piece that Vic always talks about.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that we can definitely, between myself and Vic, if we did it together, if we did it individually, like I feel like it's something that we can bring, even if it's just 30 minutes, that we can bring to the course that kind of gives people a better overarching view, because we've been, I mean, we're not super experts on anything really. We're just here trying to interview people who are really, really smart to get more information to the hands of veterans. But I feel like a lot of the stuff that we've kind of intuitively learned over the last couple of years of doing all these interviews is really something that we can bring and condense down into a 30-minute kind of presentation, put it on the screen, and just give somebody a better perspective. Because like you said, and what I've experienced and what a lot of people have experienced, is it's a very closed loop kind of thing, the TAP process, right? And sometimes you've got people that are telling you about the job force and the job structure and how it works, and they've not necessarily been out in corporate America in a C-suite position or anything like that. So take it how you got to take it. But I feel like we have a pretty good thing that we can offer to the TAP as a whole, like globally.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, again, TAP is so, to me, and again, I still continue to see it even after I've been out of the military 24 years. Even now, I still see it. It's still way militarized, and so I'm trying to go out and look for civilian jobs, and I have no idea how to do it myself. So you guys bring in something like that and showing them, hey, this is the real civilian world down here. This is where we're at. That would be a major plus for them.
Yeah. That's something we're trying to do on LinkedIn. At least I put it out there on LinkedIn. And John, I'm sure John would want to take part in this as well. It's have a panel of retirees or veterans who have recently gotten out to share with maybe like something like a TAP class or a TRS class, the ins and outs of what they experience. You get the classes, we understand that, right? You get the classes on, how to network, resumes, things like that. What people need to understand is maybe like the tax portion, maybe like actual real world scenarios of what people went through. Like, yeah, you're going to struggle a little bit. You're going to have trouble finding what you really want to do. Like Beacom Austin just mentioned, you don't know what you want to do 7 to 8 months out. Here's how you navigate that. Here's who you talk to. Here's good resources. It's very structured in a way, at least the way I did it. And mine was only 3 days long because it was for retirees, 5 days for anybody else getting out, just regular separation. But I feel like the 3 days was like not enough by any means, not enough. Having a panel of people sit in front of us where you can just, fire away questions. Hey, how did you feel about this? How did you do that? And getting real world answers would have done me just wonders on my way out. Let me see, we got some questions here. You want to switch over to the questions real quick, John?
No, I was just putting up some of the comments that people were throwing in there about the TAP process and how 5 days just isn't enough. And it's if you listen to the comments and you listen to even the conversations that we have, it's just the same thing over and over. It's like 5 days isn't enough. It's not enough tactile information. But then the other side of that coin is like, how much is too long, right? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? And I'm sure the DoD has sat down. That's why it's a DoD program. They've sat down and they've done studies and done the .mil PF process on it and made sure that they understand like exactly how to maximize their dollars when putting out this program. So I don't flaw them in any way. I know they've done their research and they've got a lot of smart people doing some really good work in the background putting this stuff together. I just think there's definitely ways to go about, and maybe it's like what you said, we just put on a thing once a month or once every quarter. Like
somebody had mentioned it, like a TRS extension. This is just an extension of it. It doesn't have to be a part of TRS. And that's why I was talking to folks on LinkedIn, like, hey, look, I want to do something locally here in like SoCal, right? Let's do a meetup, kind of like they do like Veterans Beer Club and stuff like that. Let's do a meetup, and whoever wants to join in, maybe we do it on the morning, coffee and bagels or whatever it is, and let's talk about real world stuff that you're going to encounter on your way out. So that way you are prepared. You have things in your tool bag to work with. I just don't see that on the TRS, at least the one I attended.
So we actually have up here in Kitsap County, we actually have Vet Tribe. So we do it once a month. We actually go to local breweries. We meet up there with transition service members, mill spouses, veterans who still haven't decided what they want to do when they grow up. And then next door to us in Pierce County in Tacoma, Josh Wheeler, who is also a counselor, Wounded Warrior counselor at Madigan, he also started up Pacific Northwest Vets, and they also meet on a monthly basis. And again, they're doing all these great, crazy things where we bring in employers, have a panel, ask those questions, ask the hard questions. But what I really wanted to say about this is, for my transitioning service members who already do know what they want to do when they grow up and they want to come into federal service, the federal government has what we call the VOW Act. And the VOW Act allows me as a federal employee to start onboarding you at 120 days from separation. So some of you are going to double dip for maybe 1 or 2 weeks, but it's 2 different pots of money, so it's not going to affect your pay. And guess what? Once you start working with us as you're transitioning out of the military, you're not going to have a gap in your pay. So your paycheck is going to pick up right where you actually left off, and you're going to have that probably double check that 1 week or that 1 month because you're still out processing out of the military. So that's one of the coolest things that the federal government has come up with to be able to help our transitioning service members. And again, maybe that's why the Department of Navy only has a 5-day transition, because we're able to put a lot of those sailors straight to work at the shipyard or at the submarine base, depending on what they're going to be doing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I've not heard of the VOW Act, but yeah, definitely something to look into here.
Yeah, I just threw some
deep
of it
dive
on the
stuff.
screen there.
Thank you, John. And yeah, and that's why I tell a lot of our transitions, our retirees, don't worry about the 180-day rule. Start applying at 120 days from your separation. If you're retiring or just regular ETSing or ETSing out of the military, don't worry about the 180-day rule, except if you're applying for the Army, of course. But everybody else at 120 days, start applying for these jobs, and you can get that interview, and hopefully we can start onboarding you prior to you leaving the military.
Oh, yeah. We had another comment up here real quick. This one was for you, Rudy. Appreciate all the good info. Tell Rudy that if the Navy opens up GS positions in Perth, Australia, I'll fight him for them.
Awesome. Okay.
You got some competition out there.
Nice. Yeah. And so, awesome. Yeah, I wanted to put this out, and thank you for the competition, because if you haven't noticed, most, if not all, the federal agencies are starting to create positions like mine. And I'm talking about positions like mine is actually going out, doing face-to-face recruiting, setting up at job fairs, setting up direct hire events. That's one of the coolest things that the federal government is doing right now, because remember, folks, we have direct hire for VRA eligible veterans. That means you serve 3 or more years active duty, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, or you're 30% or more disabled. You do not have to apply through USAJOBS. You can send your resume directly to a recruiter, hire an official, boom, 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 we'll bring you in for an interview. That's what we call direct hire. But here's the problem with direct hire, and I'm encountering it now and almost every day. Because you didn't apply through USAJOBS, and we offered you that GS7, and now you're ready to, hey, I'm ready to move up, I'm ready to take more responsibility. Guess what? Now you have to apply through USAJOBS to get that promotion. So you need to learn USAJOBS, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So direct hire for all VRA eligible veterans. And I talked about this in my workshop, because we have a high turnover rate on the hiring manager side of the house. They have no idea what VRA direct hire is. And you get a brand new young buck, 26-year-old supervisor. They have no idea what VRA direct hire is. And we also have direct hire for Schedule A. So I like to talk to my wounded warriors about, hey, you might be going to Cotulla, Texas. There's no openings for wounded warriors, but guess what? There's openings for civilians who are individuals with disabilities. You fall under that umbrella, so you can apply for those kinds of jobs too. So again, lots of things that we cover in the workshop. Even though there's only 4 items listed on the workshop, we go into many rabbit holes that discuss points for veterans preference points. Where do those come into play? Things like that.
Very
Sorry,
cool.
I'll talk to you guys all day.
No.
No.
Rudy, this is all great information, man. This is like what people are looking for, right? Because there's groups upon groups on federal workers and how to get your foot in the door, and it seems like it's a mystery, right?
It
It
is.
seems like nobody really knows what exactly to expect. I mean, you can read comments on Facebook groups like, how do I get, I've been applying for so long, how do I get my foot in the door? But it is awesome to hear you like demystify this stuff, like just tell us that it's not just, just people with superpowers that can do it. You got to know how to navigate the system. And a lot of it is, from what I've heard, is who within there that can get you in some positions.
Yeah.
But it is awesome to hear, straight from somebody who is at the ground level, who actually gives the classes on this stuff, who has like presentations ready. It's awesome to hear that from you.
Yeah. And so, folks, look, one of the biggest things that I get from veterans is, Rudy, I keep getting all these referrals, but I never make it to the interview process. A lot of the times they don't know it's your competition. So I'm your biggest competition. I'm a current federal employee who has veteran status, because as a veteran, I'm never going to lose veteran status. And so a lot of our transition service members are like, oh, you already got your foot in the door. Great. They don't realize that I'm going to be their biggest competition, especially when we open up the job announcements to veterans, current federal employees, and, the regular U.S. citizens. So you're welcome, folks. Look, 3 gatekeepers on USAJOBS. Number 1 is the system itself. It's verifying your eligibility. Eligibility versus qualifications, 2 different animals. So if you're applying as a veteran, the system is looking to see, is there a DD-214 in there? Because you're applying under veteran status. If you're applying under wounded warrior status, that means you're a disabled veteran. There needs to be a DD-214 and your SF-15 or your VA letter. For those of you who are transitioning out of the military, at 120 days from separation, you can use a statement of service to apply for federal positions as a veteran, even though you don't have your DD-214 yet. Okay, so gatekeeper number 1, it's checking for eligibility, and that's the one and only time an AI system is going to come into play. Gatekeeper number 2 is actually the recruiter who's reviewing your resume, and again, I'm not harping or being disrespectful to anybody. What I want you to know is, guess what? We hire a lot of military spouses, and guess where those military spouses are from? They're not American, or they're U.S. citizens, but guess what? English is their second language. So when you try to write a resume based on your military verbiage, they have no idea what you're trying to say. So that's why when I show them how to write the resume, number 1, I'm going to show you how to write your resume in civilian terminology. Number 2, I'm going to show you how to make your resume stand out to compete against somebody like me who has already got the foot in the door. So that's gatekeeper number 2, is the HR specialist that is going to refer you over to the hiring official, who's going to be gatekeeper number 3. Now, gatekeeper number 3, the hiring official, is looking to see, based off the job announcement, where did you do the duties? And based off the assessment questionnaire, where did you actually gain that experience? Okay, so that's why I'm telling you it's very important. Bounce your resume off the duties and the assessment questions to make sure you've touched on everything that the hiring official is looking for, not the recruiter.
Wow, that could have been its own episode.
I know, right? Or at least
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's Rudy. You're going to become famous. You're going to be a short on our. Yeah, we're clipping that clip right there. That is 3 things that I didn't know about. I'm glad you clarified that. But yeah, that's going to go all over the military retirement and transition podcast shorts, and also the green logbook everywhere. Yeah. Let me see. We got another.
Cool.
Let me see. Question here.
You want to throw up Rudy's contact info in the chat there, Vic, or we can throw it on the screen?
Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah. So that was a question. How do we get in contact with you, Rudy? I'll throw up your LinkedIn here really quick.
I'll give you his phone number, his email, home address, all that stuff. We got all that.
I live out in the sticks, so I'm always welcome. I'm always welcome to take in any of my fellow veterans. So, when I first left the military, I was a case manager for Catholic Community Services, working with the homeless veteran population. So I didn't realize, and again, that's what still motivated me to never give up on looking for a federal job. So when I give my presentations and I show my resume, those 14 years, I was applying for at least once or twice a week for HR positions within the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
With zero results. I never got an interview, never got referred. And again, somebody, Miss Carol Blakely, who works for the EEO office at the operations center, out of the blue, she called me and said, "Hey, Rudy, are you still looking for federal jobs?" John, is that incoming?
That's good.
That's not incoming, is it?
No, I was the name Blakely. I was trying to dig through my mental Rolodex there for a minute.
Let's
No,
see.
not until midnight.
Okay.
So we got a question here, Rudy. Sometimes I withhold that I'm a veteran when applying civilian jobs. Good idea or no? It might be a little bit different from federal jobs. I don't know.
Indeed.
So I think she might be asking more like towards civilian jobs.
You know what? The civilian jobs. Yeah. And because we encountered this when I was an employment counselor during the recession between 2008 and 2014, one of the biggest questions that I encountered as an employment counselor, and again, based on regular civilian work, I had a lot of veterans. And again, this goes back to the Vietnam era. They were told not to put that they were served in the military on their resumes. Folks, look, that's back in the day. Today they appreciate you serving in the military. Yeah, you can put a little blurb in there. Yes, I'm a veteran, or I served in the military from this year to this year. At least put it on there, because there is a lot of regular civilians out there that are looking for people like you.
Right, there you go. Let me see. We got another one here. Another question from 17 Lord Fire. Where do we go to build a good federal resume outside of USAJOBS? And does Rudy help with making federal resumes?
So, look, I'm going to tell you right now, it's great that you can build your own resume, 1 to 2 pages, usually, lots of bullets or mini paragraphs, whatever. And regular resumes are good. They're fine. The system accepts them all. But what I'm going to tell you is, if you use the resume builder on USAJOBS, that resume is not a resume. It's an actual CV. So if you do your homework, what is the difference between a resume and a CV? A CV is a curriculum vitae, which is what professors, doctors, engineers, anybody in the professional world, that's what they're going to use. So yes, I'm going to show you how to use the resume builder. I'm going to show you how to insert information in there and how to build a better resume, not just based on the job announcement, but on the skills that you bring to the table. I'm going to show you where to find all that.
Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. And Rudy, where do you usually have like a certain schedule where you give your presentations? Or is it like online, or is it just in person?
So I do in person and virtually, and I post dates, times, registration links onto my LinkedIn feed, onto my page. So I have everything up there. I usually post the next month at the end of like January 27th, I'll post my February workshop so everybody can make sure and get registered. If not, currently the Washington State Employment Office hosts me about 4 times a month virtually, different offices across the state. And so I'm at Fort Lewis every 3rd Wednesday in person, and I'm at McCord Air Force Base in person every 4th Thursday of the month too. So I'm pretty much spread out around the country. Like I said, I do Army Installation Command out at Fort Bragg and Fort Benning once a quarter also. So I'm getting around, but we're still, we still have lots of work to do, because even with the USO, I asked them, we've been doing the workshop with them for almost 5 years. And I'm like, do you think that we're going to be done with our work? They're like, Rudy, we're never going to be done with your work. So we're going to host you as long as we can. As long as you can give this workshop, we're going to host you as long as we can, because there's still a lot of transition service members and mill spouses who don't understand this process.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I bet. It's a huge number to reach. Right. So it's always going to be an ongoing thing.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got another comment question from your average logical thinker. The Airman and Family Readiness Center on bases holds Fed resume classes, writing classes too. Well, that's great to know. That's awesome. Good information. Great information.
So, and so again, I'm going to just put it out there because there's lots of experts on LinkedIn. There's lots of experts on YouTube, and they've never worked in the operations center where the applications are processed. And so they love telling people you need to have a 10-page resume with all these keywords and phrases. If you actually look at our job announcements, there's a specialized experience statement. There's no keywords and phrases that we're looking for in your resume. There's no such thing as an AI system searching for keywords and phrases. I'm looking to see how well you explained your current or past duties and how did they align with that statement. So again, I'm not looking for keywords and phrases. Folks, get that out of your mind. Again, you actually have an individual reviewing your resume to see if it makes sense. So what I always tell people, paint a picture for me. Use 6 little bullets, put a paragraph together. This is how I do my job. This is why I do my job. And these are the results of me doing my job. You're always going to get referred. If you explain those 3 little details in many paragraphs, you're always going to get referred. I can guarantee you that. You're painting
Rudy,
the picture for that reader.
Rudy, you're giving us a whole lot of material for our YouTube shorts, man.
But again, how do I beat out my competition? And one of the things that you're always told in resume writing is to never brag about yourselves. Guess what? In my resume writing class on the federal side of the house, I'm going to tell you to brag about yourselves because Vic said it at the very beginning of the class. There's 5,000 people applying for this job announcement. What's going to make my resume stand out from the other 499? How am I going to capture that hiring official's attention? So I always tell people, put in your awards that you were given to you by that particular employer at the very bottom where you gained those awards from that employer. Put them in little bullet statements. Hey, the Army gave me all these Army Commendation Medals or whatever. This civilian employer gave me all these. They recognize me for doing that hard work for them. And now I want to come do that hard work for you. So you're saying that to the hiring official right there. Hey, all these awards were given to me, all these accommodations, all these accomplishments were given to me by this particular employer. I'm ready to come do it for you. So that's how you're going to make your resume stand out. Because again, if you go to any resume writing class, they're always going to tell you, never write your resume in first person, never use personal pronouns, and never brag about yourselves. Those are the 3 things that we're going to tell you to build up, to put into your federal resume, just because the competition is so high.
Man.
And I will, and Vic, I think you sent me your resume back in the day. So folks, look, transition service members, veterans, I will be more than happy to take a look at your resume. I will bounce your resume off an actual job announcement and let you know if you're in left field or close to home base. And if you're not close to home base, I will make some notes on your resume. I will actually bounce your resume off the job announcement and I will send it back to you. So that way, hopefully we can bring you into home plate and get you an interview. That's our main goal is I want to get
Rudy,
you in front of an official.
When I started, I don't even think I was in the stadium parking lot, man, to be honest, let alone near home plate. So,
I still have your resume.
Yeah, you got it on your wall. Hey, look at this guy. Look at this guy's resume.
The wall of shame.
The wall of shame. Yeah, the wall of shame. It was garbage. It was basically my fitness reports on a resume template. But you live and you learn, and you get the classes, and then you know what people are actually looking for. So I mean, with people like you, thanks to people like you, we know how to navigate this now. At least we get a taste of it, right? So, Rudy, we don't want to take more of your time. We're going at like an hour and 40 minutes here, but is LinkedIn the best place for folks to find you?
Yes, LinkedIn right now, and I do have you're more than welcome to always share my work email address with everybody, just because my email is on 24/7 because I work with transition service members around the globe. So my email is on 24/7. My cell phone is on 24/7. Whatever I can do to help you guys out, I'm here. And thank you so much for having me today, John, Vic. I appreciate it. Again, there's still lots of work to do, and hopefully you guys are the tip of the spear.
So we appreciate that. And before you go, Rudy, we got one last question from the average logical thinker. where's the link for Rudy, for where Rudy is hiring? Fed jobs, not on USA.
So I post, most of them are going to be on USA Jobs. Okay. But because USA Jobs Operations Center started putting out what we call direct hire flyers. So when you go to a job announcement, you're not going to see the apply button up at the top. Don't panic. Go all the way down to the very bottom. You're going to see an email to the hiring official or the recruiter. Okay. Now, my post. So when you go for my jobs, if you go to the location, okay, leave the job title blank, go directly to location and type in Kitsap County, KITSAP. You're going to see all the jobs that I'm currently recruiting for right now. Folks, I got lots of jobs within NAFAC Northwest. So I only recruit for NAFAC Northwest, but in my location, my competition is Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, which holds 15,000 federal employees. I got the submarine base, which is Bangor Submarine, which has another 7,000. And then I've got all these other smaller Navy commands that are big competition for us too. But if you go to Kitsap County, location, leave the job title blank. Under NAFAC, you will see all the jobs that I'm specifically recruiting for. We've got 10-year special projects going on. So I'm hiring all kinds of environmentalists, engineers, what we call operation support specialists that work inside the facilities, maintenance personnel. So I've got blue collar, white collar jobs right now. We're revamping all the docks at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard. It's a 100-year project that hasn't been done. So we've got work at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, Bangor Submarine Base, Whidbey Island, and up in Everett. So most, if not all, the NAVFACs across the country have all these positions right now. We are in total hiring 100% mode right now.
That's dropping gems, Rudy, dropping gems. We really appreciate it. We put your LinkedIn information on there in the chat. We put your email at Navy.mil email address there in the chat as well for folks to get a hold of you, send you the resumes. Hopefully you're finding some qualified folks via this show. Yeah, we really appreciate it, man. This has been just a wealth of information. I've learned a ton myself.
And I'm always more than happy to come back. Please feel free. And I appreciate you guys having me on here because, again, there's lots of missing links when we're, especially for us transitioning service members and male spouses, when we're getting ready to come out here to the civilian world.
Yeah. Well, how about this before we get out of here? Why don't we either now or maybe right after the show, we'll sit down and map out a date that works best for you if you want to come do your presentation, and we can just live stream it and have it up. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a Sunday. Maybe we could just do a pre-recorded or something like that.
Yeah.
Works. No.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And Rudy, that's correct. Navy COP. That's correct. Navy facilities. Yep. Sorry. Go ahead.
Before we end it, how's it looking for Notre Dame tomorrow?
I think it's looking pretty good. We're going to see.
All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. All right, Rudy. Hey, thank you very much. Wealth of information. We put out all your information on the chat. We definitely will be having you back because if I learned something about it, I'm sure many folks out there can learn something about it as well. But yeah, we really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
John, man, I don't know about you, man, but I left here knowing a lot more than I did just before the show.
My mind has exploded 17 times during this episode.
Oh man! And so I wanted to share some stuff with some folks here before we get off of this. And this is great for folks who are transitioning from military to civilian. Here, it's let me pull it up on the screen. This is something I used as I was getting out, and it's called Porches for Patriots, right? And a lot of folks have not heard about this, and I was surprised. But I was linked up with somebody else who was also transitioning over. Mm-hmm. Basically, they set you up with a professional photographer in your local area. So this is an organization called Portraits for Patriots. They set me up with somebody here near my place, maybe like 10 minutes away. And you actually go into a photo studio, and they take professional photos of you. They give you one for free. You can opt to buy more. At least that's the way it worked for me. but it's great for LinkedIn usage, for like professional usage, whatever you deem necessary, and wherever you want to put it. Uh, but yeah, completely free. And it just takes a little bit of time to get you on board with somebody, but you fill out a questionnaire. Actually, this guy right here was my actual photographer. Ricky, I think was his name. He's listed on here, but very cool, very easy process, completely free for veterans who are getting out from the military to civilian life.
Sorry, I was gonna do since we're not sponsored by anybody either way. I was gonna do a shout out. Let me put the hat on since I'm doing a shout out.
Yeah, what you got?
Operation Headshot, they're doing a very similar thing, and they're also doing education for people who want to get into doing photography and doing headshots and stuff for the military. So Operation Headshot is some folks that I met out at the MIC last year at the Military Influencer Conference. Talked to them. Great bunch of people. It's an alternative. I know the Portraits for Patriots is all over the place, and they've got people scattered all over the place to do those kind of things. Just an alternative for anybody out there looking. Operation Headshot is another place where you can go search online and find as well.
Oh yeah, man. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, man. Because yeah, if Portraits for Patriots is backed up, and I mean they're a big organization, go with Operation Headshot. That might help you out a little bit. And I think I'm not sure if Operation Headshot does it, but I think Portraits for Patriots now is doing spouses. At least they have a link for spouses. So definitely check that out. Definitely check that out. It's and little things that we can throw out there to help you out in your transition.
I think I can throw this one on the screen. Hold on.
Yeah, go ahead. Comment from Navy Cop MA1. I had no idea about most of this. Blinders off from what TAP tells you, or even the current employment service officers. Hey, you know what, Navy Cop, I agree. TAP is very checklist oriented, right? They need to hit those wickets. At least that's the way I encountered it. I wish there was a little bit more to it, but slowly but surely we're, helping out, and maybe we can get into those classes ourselves.
Yeah. But I think Operation Headshot, I mean, they do the photography services, but they also do the education if you want to get into photography, if you want to become somebody who's doing headshots for veterans or for anybody else out there. It's kind of a double entendre there. A little bit step beyond Portraits for Patriots.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So yeah, it definitely, every little bit helps out.
And their swag is badass.
Where'd you get that swag? At like a trade show or something?
Yeah, at the Military Influencer Conference when I was talking to
the one I didn't go to.
Yeah, man.
See?
Swag galore.
I missed out. I need to get some stuff, man.
Yeah, I actually bought this swag and try to help support them a little bit. Bought this and a t-shirt, I think.
Oh yeah. So yeah, the next Military Influencers Conference is what, September? Is that right? This coming September? Okay, I think it's this coming September. I do have plans on going out to that one, so we might have to talk about it. And if anybody out there is going to the Military Influencers Conference, I would love to meet up. Maybe do like a military retirement podcast and meet up with some folks who follow us, or the Green Logbook meetup, folks who listen in on the show and want to grab a coffee or talk veteran stuff. I'm always down for it.
Yeah, we'll see if I make it out there this year or not. I'll try. I'm gonna try. We got
21 to 24 September. Oh yeah. In Hot Atlanta. All right.
Hot Atlanta.
Awesome. Let me see what else we got. I think we covered the TikTok stuff. We covered the using social media to go around your chain of command stuff that military's now doing, which is kind of funny. But and then military members posting videos now on red note in uniform, which is a little concerning, but it is what it is. But the highlight of the show was Rudy Muriel spitting out some knowledge on getting your foot in the door with federal positions, federal jobs, which seems to be this mystical world that nobody really knows how to navigate. All along, I thought it was all about keywords. That's probably what he has posted up on his wall was my just keywords of what I was doing. And apparently that's not the way it works. And that's what's kind of shared among social media, right? Like, hey, it's all about the keywords. but we're getting it straight from his mouth. He's at the operations center. He's the one who is actually doing the work on this. It's not about the keywords. It's about the three things, the three gatekeepers that he talked about: eligibility checks, recruiters reviewing resumes, and the hiring officials. They're looking at the duties and assessments. So get those three things down. You should be all right. Start getting those referrals. All right. Unless you got something else, John, I think that is the podcast.
I am completely content with what we've done today, sir.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you can follow us on the Military Retirement Group on Facebook if you haven't joined already. We're hitting 2.5 thousand strong right now. So please check it out, the Military Retirement Group on Facebook. A lot of good information for veterans, retirees, and folks just looking, military folks, service affiliated folks looking to get information on life after the military and the transition process. Let me see what else we got here. I got the Green Logbook on YouTube. If you're watching this on the Green Logbook, thank you very much. It's my own YouTube channel on life after the military retirement and transition podcast now. Thank you for watching us. And anything else I'm missing, John?
Yeah, if you want to support us in any of those ventures, especially the YouTube ventures, the Green Logbook or the Military Retirement and Transition podcast, just give us a like, a thumbs up, a subscribe if you want to do that. That helps out. And if you get a chance to check out the back catalog beyond the live streams, there's a bunch of interviews we have in there. There's a bunch of different videos we have out there. Little clips here and there. The video you posted about a week ago, seems to be very, very popular. So we do put out videos like that, things about space age travel, things about the BDD process. There's different videos out there that we have beyond the live stream. If you want to check out that catalog, that helps us out. Viewing those, checking those out, and it helps us expand out to a broader community. So
yeah, and definitely look out for our upcoming show. We're going to have some awesome folks coming up in the next couple of shows in the next couple of weeks. Every Sunday we do a live. Times may shift, but we'll throw it out there as soon as we find out. But
That's
normally
right.
9 a.m. Pacific time, you'll find us live here on the Military Retirement Podcast on the Green Logbook and LinkedIn too. We share on LinkedIn as well.
That's right.
So yeah, you can find us on there. Aside from that, thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for learning with us out here.
Out here.